representative from James City County, Senator Norment, rise.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak against the bill.
Senators, the floor.
One of the things that I've learned over the years that under exigent circumstances, sometimes in a moment of hyperbole, we pass some of the worst legislation that has egregious impact. And I believe that we as a legislative body should never pass broad, sweeping legislation that significantly changes and undermines any system in a moment of panic. And I think we forget, while we have been blessed with limited egregious circumstances in Virginia from law enforcement, and I don't say that it has been totally without incident, but we certainly have been blessed to not have what some other states have experienced. I think it's very important to be mindful why the atmospheric conditions exist today as they do. It is because the police officers and law enforcement all across Virginia have been called out in moments of civil disobedience to prevent property damage, to prevent personal damage, and that they are standing there on the front lines. And the individuals that have come out under circumstances that have not happened in Virginia have tried to burn down police precincts, have thrown bricks and sent 3 of our Capitol police officers to the hospital, have discharged Roman candles at them, and at the same time, we expect these law enforcement individuals to stand there and continue to take the abuse. And that's what they are trained for, and we have passed sweeping legislation dealing with de-escalation training, which I think is going to have a significant impact. I listened to the comments about the word may, and back in a long time ago when I taught in law school to third-year students, one of the things I'd emphasize is that words mean something. Words mean something, and many times in this body we have discussed the distinction between the permissive word of may and the obligatory word of must. And I must say that I get no comfort with the fact that this is permissive, and that is because I live in the world of reality. What I can tell you is some of these same individuals who are out there participating in the mob desecrating Virginia Commonwealth University, who are throwing bricks, who are setting fires, who just recently protested in front of the City Hall in Richmond because they did not want the City Council to accept a federal grant, a portion of which would go to law enforcement, and they wanted City Council to change the funding to go to mental health. Mental health is most appropriate, but these are going to be the same people who out there who put the graffiti going down Broad Street, who tried to storm the mayor's apartment in downtown Broad Street. They are going to be the ones that are screaming at local government saying, you must, not you may, you must adopt these citizen review boards. And you know what? I have said this many, many times. Nothing scares an elected official more than a registered voter in an election season. Right, Mr. President? So, yes, the may word is there, but there is going to be incredible pressures placed on them. And what's going to happen? You're going to create a citizen board that has unparalleled authorities that we've never seen in Virginia. You're going to see boards that can make a recommendation on the career of a law enforcement officer, and they know nothing about law enforcement other than they treated me poorly when I was out there writing vulgar words on the Lee Monument. And they are going to insist on some egregious punishments against law enforcement, because there are those who believe no matter what the circumstances are in Richmond, for instance, you cannot use tear gas, you cannot use rubber bullets, you cannot use these bean bags, and Lord forbid that you would use a baton to protect yourself. You talk about de-escalation. I suggest to you that this is much more insidious than the altruistic purposes that have been advocated adopting this bill. And then, Mr. President, you're an extraordinary lawyer and much more gifted and experienced than I would ever hope to be. But we're going to take
Can the senator pause right there?
I'll write that in November.
All right, please continue.
But we're going to give them, the power to bring in witnesses, the equivalency of a subpoena power. When have we ever done that to a group of citizens like this? I suggest to you that I appreciate what the gentlelady's thoughts are on this. I've started to slip and say the word motives, but we never do that. So I apologize for even letting that thought cross my mind. I do think that she means well, but the practicality and the implementation of this has the potential to be horrendous. And we don't think of things a lot of times in the General Assembly in the aggregate effect. We look at one bill and we debate it and we think about it and we vote on it. And all too frequently, we do not look at the whole parameter of universe of what we're doing. And I suggest to you that I know there are other members of this body who have checked with law enforcement to find out what is going on within certain law enforcement agencies. Back in mid-August, I checked with the Virginia State Police, and that week, 43 resignations. If you believe anything that the local Richmond media propagates, last week they indicated that in one day, 16 officers had transferred from Richmond into Henrico. You see what's happening with the Capitol Police. We had a little dialogue last week on that. Capitol Police, they're not leaving because they're under any kind of criticism or what someone might misrepresent. They're going for other opportunities because they don't want to stand out there on the front line having bricks, concrete, and fireworks thrown at them and saying you got to stand down. We are going in Virginia, and honestly, I'm very empathetic what has happened to some of these unsuspecting, ill-treated minorities in other states. I have enormous compassion, and as a practitioner of law, I am outraged. I am outraged. But by the same token, I am concerned primarily at what's going to happen in Virginia, and we are going to continue to see a significant migration of good, qualified, trained police officers who are going to migrate out of the profession because they think that the legislature, in a moment of hysteria, is going to undermine them in every way. Mr. President, one thing I learned a long time ago, never believe your own press clippings, and very rarely believe that when you say something on the floor of the Senate that it changes one vote. But you know what? I will sleep better tonight having vented just a little bit, because this is a subject. I have ridden with the police many, many times. I interact with them every day of my professional career. I have represented many, many law enforcement officers, not for egregious circumstances where they mistreated an inmate or a defendant, but for other reasons. I know these people. I know them professionally. I know them personally. And this is just not a good direction.
Thank the senator. For what purpose is the senator from King George? Senator Stewart, right?